September 10th, 2001. Elstree Studios, Borehamwood, Hertfordshire. Look at the stage. It is not just a room. It is a manufactured pressure cooker, an amphitheater engineered like a modern coliseum. The ambient temperature is deliberately stifling, dialed up to keep the audience alert and the contestants sweating. Circular seating wraps around the center like a vice. The floor is made of glass. A single dramatic cone of tungsten light pierces the manufactured darkness, trapping the two men sitting in the middle. In the center of this light sits Major Charles Ingram of the Royal Engineers. He is 38 years old. He is clad in a mundane polo shirt. His face is flushed. His eyes dart frantically between the glowing monitors and the man sitting opposite him. That man is Chris Tarrant, the host, the ultimate ringmaster of Britain's most intoxicating television phenomenon. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The stakes? £1 million, the highest cash prize in television history. Tarrant leans forward. The tension in the studio is a physical weight. You can hear the hum of the lighting rigs. You can hear the syncopated, synthetic heartbeats pumped through the studio's massive surround sound system. The final question sits on the screen between them. A number 1 followed by 100 zeros is known by what name? 4 options glow in the dark. The first option is Google. The second is Megatron. The third is Gigabit. The fourth is Nanomole. Ingram is crumbling. The mask is slipping. He stammers. He mutters. He repeatedly tells Tarrant that he has absolutely no idea what a Google is. He leans toward Nanomole. He leans toward Megatron. To guess and fail means losing £468,000. To walk away means taking home £500,000. Any rational human being walks away, but he does not walk away. He speaks the word Google. Somewhere in the darkness, just beyond the edge of the light, a sound breaches the silence. A cough. It is not a clearing of the throat. It is not a biological necessity. It is a signal. It is a binary line of code executed in the middle of a live broadcast. Ingram pauses. His entire demeanor shifts. The agonizing indecision evaporates into the hot air. He looks Tarrant dead in the eye and says, "I will play Google." Tarrant throws to a commercial break against Ingram's panicked protests. The suspension of disbelief is stretched to its absolute limit. When the cameras return, the illusion is completed. Tarrant rips up the £500,000 check. He screams in delight. Glitter cannons erupt from the ceiling, cascading synthetic gold over the stage. The audience explodes into a frenzy of genuine, unadulterated joy. Tarrant embraces the sweating major. He declares into a live microphone, "You are the most amazing contestant we have ever had." Diana Ingram, Charles's wife, rushes down from the tiered seating, throwing her arms around her husband. The heist is over. The vault is open. The money is theirs. But the victory is a ghost. The celebration? Pure theater. The real drama is not happening under the confetti. It is happening in the control room, high above the glass floor. Up there, the audio engineers are rewinding the tape. They are not celebrating. They are listening. They are isolating the frequencies. They are realizing that the greatest game show in the world has just been hacked by a human throat. To understand the crime, you must understand the target. The year is 2001. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is not just a television program. It is a monolith. 19 million people tune in every single night. It dictates the cultural conversation of an entire nation. It is syndicated in over 100 countries. The format itself is a masterclass in psychological pressure. 15 questions, 3 lifelines, exponentially increasing sums of money. It plays on the deepest, most primal human fantasy, the instant, effortless transformation of a life through the application of obscure trivia. But the game is protected by a fortress of mechanics. To even reach the hot seat opposite Chris Tarrant, a player must survive a brutal qualifying round called Fastest Finger First. It is a high-speed sorting test where 10 contestants scramble to arrange 4 answers in chronological or alphabetical order using electronic keypads. The fastest wins. The others sit in the dark, watching a stranger play for their dreams. Enter the Ingram family. They are not casual viewers. They are an obsessed syndicate. Diana Ingram, a nursery nurse, and her brother, Adrian Pollock, have both previously conquered the fastest finger first round. They have both sat in the hot seat. They have both walked away with exactly £32,000. Diana is so deeply entrenched in the architecture of the game that she has co-authored a book on how to crack the show's selection process. But £32,000 is not enough. Charles and Diana Ingram are drowning. They are buried under £50,000 of suffocating debt. Charles Ingram is an army major, a royal engineer, a veteran of Bosnia, a member of Mensa. He is an intelligent, educated man who, according to his commanding officers, possesses complete, unblemished integrity. But desperation rewrites the moral code. To prepare for his turn, Charles builds a homemade fastest finger first machine in his living room. It is an act of sheer, obsessive calculation. He practices for 20 minutes a day, hardwiring his reflexes, preparing his central nervous system for the physical reality of the studio. September 9th, 2001, day 1 of filming. Charles Ingram finally makes it. He beats the 9 other hopefuls. He takes the hot seat. The lights drop. The cameras roll. And he is a disaster. The early questions on Millionaire are designed to be frictionless. They are supposed to ease the contestant into the flow of the game, letting them build confidence before the stakes turn lethal. But Charles stumbles. He is erratic. He lacks basic general knowledge. By the time he reaches the relatively minor sum of £4,000, he has already burned through 2 of his 3 precious lifelines. He uses the Ask the Audience lifeline on a question about the soap opera Coronation Street, discovering that the character Gail is Audrey's daughter. He uses Phone a Friend on a question about the location of the River Foyle, relying entirely on his friend Gerald to tell him it is in Northern Ireland. He is floundering. The production crew watches him from the gallery with thinly veiled contempt. Chris Tarrant himself assumes Ingram will wash out quickly, later describing him as nice but dim. The consensus among the Celador production staff is unanimous. Charles Ingram will not survive another 2 questions. But television is ruled by the clock. The klaxon sounds, signaling the end of the broadcast day. Charles Ingram survives by the bell. He is sent home with £4,000 and exactly 1 lifeline, the 50-50 remaining. He is told to return the following evening, September 9th, 2001, nighttime in the real world. The stage goes dark and the studio empties. What happens in the Ingram household over the next 12 hours is the subject of intense forensic debate. Phone records reveal a sudden flurry of activity. There are calls to pagers, 4 separate devices. The prosecution will later theorize that the Ingrams were constructing a high-tech communication system in the dark. The plan? Strap 4 vibrating pagers to Charles's body. Diana would sit in the audience with a mobile phone, paging him the correct alphanumeric answers through the fabric of his clothes. Diana will later claim these calls were entirely innocent. She will say they were attempts to locate her brother, Marcus, who had gone off the grid to avoid his own crippling bank debts. But there is another piece of data in the telecommunication logs, a thread connecting 2 strangers in the dark. Over the previous 7 months, there have been 38 phone calls between the Ingram household and a man named Tequin Whittock. Who is Tequin Whittock? He is 53 years old, a college lecturer in business studies from Pontypridd, Wales. He is also £37,000 in debt. He is saddled with a £100,000 mortgage and exorbitant private school fees for his 3 children. And on the evening of September 10th, 2001, Tequin Whittock is scheduled to be sitting in the fastest finger first row, just 10 feet behind Charles Ingram. The pagers are abandoned. Perhaps they are too risky. Perhaps the technology is too slow, taking upwards of 20 seconds to transmit a numeric signal from the outside world into the studio. Instead, they opt for an analog solution, a method as old as cheating itself, invisible, untraceable, plausible deniability built directly into human biology, the cough. September 10th, 2001. The studio is alive again. The audience fills the circular stands, completely unaware that they are about to become extras in a heist movie. Diana Ingram takes her seat in the crowd. Tequin Whittock sits in the fastest finger first row, directly in the line of sight of Charles Ingram's back. Charles Ingram returns to the hot seat. The lights snap to his face. He is a different man. The bumbling, hesitant player from the night before is gone, replaced by a man with a plan. He announces to Chris Tarrant that he has a strategy for playing the rest of the game. The 8th question is for £8,000. Who was the second husband of Jacqueline Kennedy? The first option is Adnan Khashoggi. The second is Ronald Reagan. The third is Aristotle Onassis. The fourth is Rupert Murdoch. Charles reads the options aloud. He immediately states he thinks it is Aristotle Onassis. From the shadows of the fastest finger row, Tequin Whittock coughs. Charles hears it. The frequency connects. He solidifies his stance. He locks in Aristotle Onassis. It is correct. Question 9. £16,000. Emmenthal is a cheese from which country? Charles rattles off the answers. He declares it is Switzerland. He locks it in immediately. There is a cough, but it is simultaneous with his answer. He knows this one organically. The system does not need to activate. Question 10, 32,000 pounds. This is the threshold. This is the safety net. If he gets this wrong, he plummets all the way back to 1,000 pounds. The financial ruin waiting for him at home will become inescapable. Who had a hit UK album with Born to Do It, released in 2000? Charles stares at the screen. He has no idea. He uses his final lifeline, the 50-50. 2 incorrect answers vanish from the glowing monitor. He is left with 2 choices, a 1 and Craig David. Charles speaks into the silence. I think it's A1. I've never heard of Craig David. He prepares to lock in A1. The crew in the control room readies the graphics for a loss. The game is over. Tarrant waits for the final confirmation. Then a cough rings out, but this one does not come from the fastest finger row. This cough originates from the audience. It cuts through the ambient noise. It comes from Diana Ingram. Charles stops. He pivots entirely. The conviction in his voice evaporates, replaced by a sudden, inexplicable change of heart. He looks at Tarrant and says, 80% of the time I'm wrong when I guess, so you know what? I'll go Craig David. He locks it in. It is correct. He has secured 32,000 pounds. High above the studio floor, the control room begins to hum with confusion. The producers, watching the isolated camera feeds, feel a prickle of unease. Charles Ingram is not playing like a genius. He is not playing like a man accessing deep wells of trivia. He is playing like a blind man being guided through a minefield by a series of sonic taps. The questions escalate. The stakes multiply. 64,000 pounds. Gentlemen versus Players was an annual match between amateurs and professionals of which sport? The answer is cricket. 125,000 pounds. The Ambassadors in the National Gallery is a painting by which artist? The answer is Holbein. 250,000 pounds. What type of garment is an Anthony Eden? The answer is hat. With every single question, the choreography repeats itself. The script is rigidly adhered to. Charles reads the 4 options aloud. He meanders. He deliberately stalls, buying time. He tests the waters, floating blatantly wrong answers into the air just to see if the room reacts. When he hovers his voice over the correct answer, Tequin Whittock clears his throat. Charles registers the signal. He absorbs the data. He locks in the answer. The rhythm is unbroken. Read, wait, cough, lock, read, wait, cough, lock. But at 500,000 pounds, the system nearly collapses under its own weight. The question is displayed on the glass monitor. Baron Haussmann is best known for his planning of which city? The options are Rome, Paris, Berlin, and Athens. Charles looks at the board. He is convinced it is Berlin. He speaks his thought process aloud. He rationalizes that Haussmann is a German name. It makes logical sense. He is dead set on locking it in. He begins to move toward the precipice, preparing to speak the phrase, final answer. In the fastest finger row, Tequin Whittock panics. The system has a fatal flaw. A cough is an affirmative signal. A cough means yes. But how do you signal no? How do you stop a train from going off the cliff? As Charles prepares to finalize Berlin, Whittock breaks protocol. He lets out a sharp, highly audible no. He follows it instantly with a loud nose blow. It is an all-stop signal broadcast across the studio. Charles freezes. The German theory evaporates from his mind. He looks at the remaining options. He slowly, agonizingly, begins to talk himself out of Berlin and back into Paris. When his voice finally lands on Paris, the customary rhythmic coughs resume from the shadows. The yes signal is reestablished. He locks in Paris. He secures 500,000 pounds. The illusion is straining at the seams. The choreography is getting sloppy. In the gallery, the production staff is no longer simply confused. They are actively suspicious. They are watching a man risk £500,000 on a city he dismissed just 60 seconds prior. And then, the summit. The £1 million question. A number 1 followed by 100 zeros is known by what name? The first option is Google. The second is Megatron. The third is Gigabit. The fourth is Nanomole. Charles Ingram is drowning in the lights. He leans toward Nanomole. He says clearly and definitively, I don't think I've heard of a Google. In the fastest finger row, another contestant is watching. His name is Larry Whitehurst. Whitehurst is a trivia expert. He knows the answer is Google. But more importantly, Whitehurst has picked up on the pattern. He has watched Whittock coughing for the last hour. Whitehurst stares at Whittock, waiting in the dark. He thinks to himself, if this man coughs on the word Google, they are cheating. Charles Ingram begins his verbal sweep. He reads the options again. He hits the word Google. Whittock coughs. Charles circles back. He hits Google again. Whittock coughs a second time. Charles does a final theatrical check of the board. He lands his voice on Google. Whittock coughs a third and final time. Charles Ingram, a man who minutes ago swore to an audience of millions that he had never heard the word, locks in Google to win £1 million. Chris Tarrant throws to the final commercial break. The tension in the studio is unendurable. When they return, Tarrant delivers the verdict. The confetti falls. The massive, oversized check is signed. The audience screams in jubilation. But look closely at the stage. Larry Whitehurst is sitting in absolute silence, his suspicions permanently confirmed. Tequan Whittock is staring blankly ahead, a man who has just executed his part of a multi-million-pound fraud. And Charles Ingram? He is smiling, but the smile does not reach his eyes. The performance is over. The reality is about to begin. The cameras stop rolling. The glittering facade of Elstree Studios dissolves instantly into the cold, bureaucratic machinery of television production. As soon as Charles Ingram steps off the stage, the atmosphere curdles. The production executives do not greet him with champagne. They do not shake his hand. They greet him with a demand. They march the newest millionaire in Britain backstage and subject him to a physical search. They pat down his arms. They pat down his legs. They check his torso. They comb through his hair. They are looking for earpieces. They are looking for wires. They are looking for pagers. They find nothing. Charles and Diana are escorted to their designated dressing room. Chris Tarrant, still buoyant from the historic television moment, heads down the corridor to congratulate the couple. But as he approaches the door, he stops in his tracks. He hears shouting. Inside the dressing room, the newly minted millionaires are not celebrating their transformation. They are engaged in a vicious, bitter argument. Lisa Telford, a researcher bringing the couple a pint of bitter and a glass of wine, approaches the room and hears a window slam shut. The voices are raised. The tone is heavily aggressive. Eve Winstanley, another researcher, enters and attempts to lighten the mood. Ingram turns on her. He raises his arms. He snaps, "Don't start. I have got things to do. You don't understand." He tells her to get out. Why the rage? Why the open hostility? The prosecution will later theorize that Charles was never supposed to go all the way. The plan was to stop at a lower tier, to take £64,000, or perhaps £125,000, and walk away, to avoid drawing the intense microscopic scrutiny that inevitably accompanies a £1 million win. Charles, consumed by the greed of the hot seat, intoxicated by the lights, pushed too far. He went off script, and in doing so he doomed them all. Meanwhile, high above the studio floor, the CEO of Celador Productions, Paul Smith, is making a phone call. He has received urgent, alarming reports from his sound technicians. The payout must be halted immediately. The check must be frozen. Smith orders a comprehensive forensic review of the broadcast tapes. The raw footage is sent out to EditWorks, a highly specialized post-production audio facility. The engineers sit in dark rooms, staring at waveforms on their monitors. They isolate the audio channels. They strip away Chris Tarrant's voice. They strip away Charles Ingram's voice. They strip away the synthetic heartbeat of the soundtrack. They focus entirely on the ambient noise, the empty space between the words. The results are damning. Across the duration of Charles Ingram's second night in the hot seat, the highly sensitive microphones pick up exactly 192 coughs. But coughs are common in a room of 300 people. The engineers must dig deeper. They filter out the general audience noise. They isolate the specific microphones positioned near the fastest finger first row. They find 32 specific, isolated coughs emanating from the contestants waiting to play. And of those 32, 19 are classified by the audio technicians as significant. 19 coughs that perfectly, immaculately coincide with the exact millisecond Charles Ingram vocalizes a correct answer. 19 sonic fingerprints that guide a man who does not know the capital of France's urban planner to a £1 million victory. Paul Smith makes the decision. The episode is permanently pulled from the broadcast schedule. It will never air. The police are called to the studio. The arrests are made. March 2003, Southwark Crown Court, London. The stage has changed. The glittering television studio is replaced by the severe oak and leather of the British judicial system. Judge Geoffrey Rivlin presides over the theatre. The defendants, Charles Ingram, Diana Ingram, and Tequan Whittock, sit in the dock. They are formally charged with procuring the execution of a valuable security by deception. The trial is a massive media circus. It is a bizarre collision of lowbrow television culture and high-stakes criminal law. The prosecution, led by Nicholas Hilliard QC, weaves a narrative of desperate people committing a desperate act. Hilliard lays out the financial ruin of the defendants for the jury to see. Ingram is £50,000 in debt. Whittock is £37,000 in debt, bleeding money on high-interest credit cards and private school fees. He presents the phone records, the 38 calls, the 4 pagers, the abandoned digital strategy, and then he plays the tape. Over and over again, the jury sits in silence, listening to the agonizing, stilted performance of Charles Ingram. They listen to the rhythmic, unnatural hacking of Tequin Whittock. The cause and effect is played out in high-fidelity audio. The defense mounts a desperate counteroffensive. Tequin Whittock takes the stand. He claims he has suffered from a persistent cough his entire life. He blames a volatile combination of severe hay fever and a chronic dust allergy. He testifies that the Elstree studios were notoriously dusty, triggering an uncontrollable respiratory response. But the prosecution strikes back with a devastating piece of circumstantial evidence. Shortly after Charles Ingram's game ended on that September night, Tequin Whittock actually won the fastest finger first round. He took the hot seat himself. He played his own game of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And during his time in the chair, his persistent, uncontrollable, allergy-induced cough miraculously vanished. He drank several glasses of water, he claims, and the severe throat irritation simply subsided. Left to his own devices, Whittock crashed out of his own game, answering the £8,000 question incorrectly and leaving the studio with only £1,000. Then comes the testimony of Larry Whitehurst, the contestant who sat just feet away in the dark. Whitehurst looks the jury dead in the eye and testifies that he decoded the entire cheating system in real time. He watched Whittock. He predicted the exact cough on the word Google. He saw the physical manifestation of the fraud play out in front of him. Chris Tarrant is called to the stand. The host defends his own oblivion. He testifies that the studio is a sensory overload. The loud applause, the blinding flashing lights, the extreme stress of managing the game. He simply did not hear the coughs. He states, unequivocally to the court, that if he had suspected cheating for even a fraction of a second, he would never have signed the £1 million check. The trial grinds on for 4 grueling weeks. The jury deliberates for 13.5 hours. April 7, 2003. The verdict is delivered. Guilty. All 3 defendants are convicted by a majority verdict. The sentences are severe, though they will not see the inside of a prison cell. Charles and Diana Ingram are given 18-month suspended prison sentences. Tequin Whittock is given a 12-month suspended sentence. But the financial penalties are crushing. Fines of £15,000 for the Ingrams, fines of $10,000 for Whittock. Additional prosecution and defense costs eventually swell the Ingrams' legal debt to a staggering £115,000. The illusion is permanently broken. The reality is absolute ruin. The fallout is swift and merciless. The Army Board orders Major Charles Ingram to resign his commission, brutally terminating a 17-year military career. He is formally stripped of his rank. Whittock resigns from his lecturing position in absolute disgrace, eventually forced to sell his family home just to cover the court fines. The public turns the Ingrams into a national punchline. They are harassed in the streets of their hometown. Pedestrians cough loudly as they walk past them on the pavement. Their car is vandalized. In a sickening escalation of vigilante harassment, their pet cat is shot with an air rifle. Late 2003. The criminality does not end there. Charles Ingram finds himself back in a courtroom, this time in Bournemouth. He is convicted of an entirely unrelated insurance fraud. He attempted to claim £30,000 for a supposed burglary without disclosing his extensive, problematic history of prior claims to Direct Line Insurance. The presiding judge notes his ineluctable dishonesty. The coughing major is cemented into the cultural bedrock of British infamy. 20 years pass since the synthetic gold glitter fell on Charles Ingram's shoulders. The dust in Elstree Studios has long since settled. The audio tapes have been locked away in archives. The massive fines have been paid. In the years following the scandal, Charles Ingram would declare bankruptcy 4 separate times. He would eventually be spotted selling handmade jewelry at a Christmas market in Bath, a ghost of a man who once held a £1 million check in his sweating hands. But the story refuses to die. It is revived in documentaries. It is debated in podcasts. It is adapted into a hit West End play and a subsequent television drama titled Quiz. And with the dramatization comes the inevitable revisionism, the opening of the closed loops of the narrative. Was Tequin Wittick's medical defense actually legitimate? Professor Alan Maurice, an expert in respiratory medicine, later reviewed the broadcast tapes and expressed sheer astonishment at the guilty verdict. He suggested that coughs cannot be entirely controlled, and that a distinct fingerprint of a chronic cough was absolutely present in Wittick's audio track. Was the audio tape presented to the jury unfairly manipulated by the prosecution? Was the ambient noise maliciously suppressed, and the coughs artificially amplified to fit a preconceived narrative of guilt? Was Charles Ingram simply a victim of astronomical coincidence? A man whose erratic, highly theatrical method of playing simply aligned with the biological throat clearings of a sick man sitting 10 feet away? The defense points out that of the 192 total coughs recorded that night, many occurred on incorrect answers. They point out the sheer logical absurdity of trusting a £1 million heist to a stranger you have only spoken to on the phone. A man in crippling debt changes his entire strategy overnight. A wife writes a literal manual on how to beat the system. A lecturer with a crippling mortgage happens to sit directly behind them. A silent conversation of guttural stops and starts leads a floundering contestant flawlessly through the highest-stakes trivia game on Earth. The story is not just about cheating. It is about the intoxicating, destructive danger of the stage. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was always a manufactured reality. It was a set made of cheap plywood and plastic. It was illuminated by tungsten halogens. It was orchestrated by producers pulling levers in a dark room. It was an illusion of meritocracy, designed to make the audience believe that anyone could escape their life if they just knew the right answer. Charles Ingram simply built an illusion on top of theirs. He recognized that the game show was a script, and he decided to write his own stage directions. But he forgot the cardinal rule of the theater. You can fool the audience. You can fool the host. You can even fool yourself into believing you belong in the spotlight. But you cannot fool the microphones. They do not care about your bank debts. They do not care about your military rank. They do not care about your desperation. They only record the raw, unfiltered frequency of the truth. How far will a human being go to escape the crushing weight of their own reality? The answer is in the cough.